Hello Math 3 students. So you are on an editable PDF. This is the first grading period, second week, second day, so Tuesday. And this set of notes is on inequalities and interval notation. There are 2 pages to these notes, and I'm going to be filling these in as I talk to you about this lesson. Also, I might draw something because I have the tablet, so it's really easy for me just to write things out or to draw a symbol. But you might want to use the text tool and type in what I'm drawing. So that's perfectly fine, because it would be, unless you're on an iPad or on your phone or something, it's probably going to be pretty difficult for you to use the drawing tool to do this. So going back to elementary school, you learned some symbols for inequalities. Inequalities are what tell us that some number is greater than another number or less than another number. So if we're talking about everything that's less than 2, we would use an inequality for that. We'd use an inequality symbol. And those symbols that you learned were the less than symbol, which is this way, the greater than symbol, and less than or equal to, which means you have the less than with a line under it. And I'm not sure you can do this typing it, so you might need to draw the line underneath this. And the greater than or equal to symbol. Now, we know what these symbols are. I'll tell you how I remember the less than symbols. I think it looks like an L. And so that's how I've always, since I was a kid, remembered which one's less than and which one's greater than. Some people talk about, alligator mouth or Pac-Man or whatever. I've never liked that very much because it would always confuse me more than anything else. So I always said, well, this looks like an L, so this stands for less than. If you are reading a word problem and you see the term at most, then that means you are going to be using a less than or equal symbol. Conversely, if you see the words at least, you will be using a greater than or equal to symbol. I'll give you an example. If you go to like Carowinds or somewhere or an amusement park and it says you have to be at least this tall to ride this ride, that means if it says you have to be at least 5 feet tall, then you could be 5 feet, you could be 5 feet 5 inches, you could be 6 feet, 7 feet, whatever. That doesn't really happen, but anyway. So the at least means that all the numbers greater than or equal to that number would apply. So at most, if I said he is at most 10 years older than I am, then he could be 10 years older, 9 years older, 8, 7, on down to 1 or 0. And the at most, you would use the less than symbol because it would be everything less than 10 or equal to 10. So I'll type in some things and you can do the same thing. So go ahead and grab your text box, and I'm going to use red just to show that these are, this is my answers. It would be great if you used a different color as well. It would just help me see it on your submission to give you credit. So text box, I'm going to use red. I think 18 is probably going to be big enough. Interval notation is used to describe a solution set. A solution set. In other words, the set of numbers that work for that particular problem of an inequality or an interval on a number line. So I put number line right here. And you can, if you grab that, you can pull it up. If you did yours like I did mine and got it kind of too low, you can pull it up. Okay, so we have parentheses right here, and we have what I call them brackets. And the parentheses indicate that a particular endpoint is not located, is not included in the interval. And I'll talk to you about all this in a minute, and we'll get these filled in, and then I'll get more specific with this. Brackets indicates that the endpoint is included in the interval, and we use this with the greater than, with the ones that have the equals under it. We use the parentheses with any intervals that have just less than or greater than, but don't have the equals under them. So there are different ways that we can denote inequalities, and parentheses and brackets is one way. The open circles and closed circles, which we're about to talk about, and also the greater than, equal to, less than, equal to. Okay, so parentheses indicates open circles. And you might remember that from back in middle school, graphing stuff on a number line. Brackets indicates closed or colored in or filled in circles. And you can put or filled circles there. So let's talk about what this means. Let me scroll down a little bit. So if I asked you to show this inequality, x is less than 2 on this number line, I'm going to get my drawing tool and I'll use like a green or something. I want this to be a little bit thicker, so I'll go to the 4. If I wanted to show x is greater than 2 on this number line, I would find the 2. And the other thing that you can look at is the fact that greater than, that's like an arrow. So it's everything to the right of the 2. So I would go ahead and just draw or color in or whatever my arrow going that way. But then what I need to look at is this an open circle or a closed circle? And we said a while ago that less than or greater than without that equal symbol, that is open circles. So what that means is that when I show the 2 on this number line, I'm going to switch colors here, I would use an open circle. And you know, this is what I teach my students when I talk to them about open circles versus closed circles. I tell them, look for this line down here. Pretend that is like your crayon or your marker. If it's there, you have a crayon to color in the circle. And in this case, I don't have that crayon, so I can't color in the circle. So I just draw the circle and leave it open like that. So that's called an open circle. It's one that we don't color it in. We can also write x is greater than 2 in what we call interval notation. And this is where we use the parentheses and the brackets. Okay, so if it's everything greater than 2, and you see how this arrow is right here, so that means it keeps going. So it keeps going to infinity. So I'm just going to draw a little infinity symbol right there. And so my first endpoint is going to be 2. So I'm going to put that here. My second endpoint is going to be infinity, and you can also draw it like a figure 8, like that. Now, infinity always gets parentheses, okay? If this 2 was colored in, if it said greater than or equal to, then I would put a bracket right here, but it doesn't. So what I use is parentheses, and that indicates that it's everything greater than 2, but 2 is not included. So 2 would not be included in that solution set. 2.1 would be, 3 would be, 3.5 would be, but the number 2 is not included in that solution set. So 3 different ways we can write inequalities. One is with the inequality symbols. The other one is on a number line, and the other one is interval notation like this on the right. Let's try another one. Okay, x is less than or equal to 3. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the 3 on my number line, and I'm going to put a circle there. I might or I might not color it in. The next thing I want to look at is, do I have my marker to color it in? I do. I've got my equal symbol, so that means 3 is included in that solution set. So I'm going to color in my circle this time. And then I need to figure out which way do I need to go with my arrow. Do I go to the left or do I go to the right? Well, this arrow right here is going to the left. So I'm going to pick a different color and draw my arrow. And you don't have to go all the way to the end as long as you draw an arrow on the end like that. And then I need to do this in interval notation. Actually, I think I'll keep that same color. So interval notation, this is infinity down here. Well, the infinity's on the left. So that's my first sort of endpoint. It's not really an endpoint because infinity doesn't have an endpoint. But that's my first, that's on the left of the graph. And then my endpoint on the right is the 3. Okay, so I'm sorry, I said infinity. I should have said negative infinity. This is negative infinity over here. This is positive infinity this way. So because these negative numbers keep getting smaller and smaller. So negative infinity to 3. Now, negative infinity and positive infinity always get brackets. The 3 in this case, I'm sorry, always gets parentheses. I didn't mean to say brackets. Always gets parentheses. The 3 in this case gets a bracket because it's a closed circle, and the 3 would be included in the solution set. All right, so let's look at this one. This one is called a compound inequality, and what that means is that it's not to infinity or to negative infinity. This one what this says is that x is between -3 and 5. So my endpoints are the -3 and 5. There's no negative infinity, no positive infinity. So what I'm going to do first is go to my number line and look for the -3 and put a circle there. And then I'm going to look for the 5 and put a circle there. And I'm going to color in everything in between. And then I'm going to decide, do I need to color in those circles or not? Both of these are have the equal to. They both have that marker or crayon that I talked about. So I'm going to color in both of these circles. Now let's talk about what the interval notation would look like. I would have a -3 as one endpoint, a 5 as the other endpoint, and both of them get brackets because they're both included. They both have that equal symbol with them. Okay, the next one says x is any real number. So what that means is that this would be the entire number line. So what I would do, I'm going to get a different color here. What I would do is I would shade in the whole number line and put arrows at both ends. And then my interval notation is going to be negative infinity, positive infinity. This indicates every real number right here. Anytime you see that, that's every real number. What I actually see an error on this paper. I see a bracket with a negative infinity. This should be a parentheses, so you can correct that right there and put a parentheses right there. Okay, so the next one is also a compound inequality, and they drew it up above so you can see it a little bit better. There is a closed circle at -1, and then also this goes to negative infinity. Excuse me. And then there's an open circle at 4, and this one goes to positive infinity. But the part in between these two numbers is not included in the solution set. So everything on this side of the -1 and everything on this side of the 4 is included. So let's see, how would we write that? We would write, I'm going to grab a different color. Grab red. We would write x is less than or equal to, because we got a closed circle, -1. Or, we're going to use the word or because it's not and. You can't have both less than -1 and greater than 4. So we use the word or x is greater than 4. So that's how we would write it in the inequality notation. Let's look at interval notation. We use a special symbol for this. It's going to be two different intervals. So the first one is going to be negative infinity to -1, and the -1 gets a bracket because it's included. And then we use this symbol like right here, and this means or. The second interval is going to be parentheses, 4, infinity, oops, can't write off of there, and parentheses. I didn't realize I couldn't write off the sheet. Okay, so what I would do is I would encourage you to pause your video and try this next line out. So you've got an interval that goes from negative infinity to -8. See if you can write the inequality for it and see if you can graph that on the number line and then come back. Okay, so this is what you should have gotten. X is less than -8 without the equals under it because the -8 is not included in this. And on the number line, you would have had an open circle at -8 and then your arrow goes to the left. So I want you to change something about this last one. Let me get a thinner pen. This one, I want you to change this to that U symbol instead of the one that's there. I want you to change it to this or symbol. And then I want you to pause your video and try to do this one and see what you get. So this last one's interesting because the 0 has a parentheses on both of these, which means 0 is not included, but it goes from negative infinity to positive infinity without the 0. So that's what that means. If we had used that other symbol, it would have been all real numbers and it would have been kind of boring. So that's why I changed that. So the inequality is x is less than 0 or x is greater than 0, because it can't be both. It can't be less than and greater than. So that means that the 0 is left out, so there's an open circle there. Okay, so we're going to move on down to the second page. Again, this is something that you should have learned how to do in about 7th grade. So hopefully it's going to just be, it's just going to come back to you. Solving inequalities is basically like solving equations. So you solve inequalities the same as you would equations. It's really the same, except if you multiply or divide by a negative number, you flip the symbol. I say reverse the symbol. You can say flip if you want to. I say reverse the symbol because if I flip this over, it's still the same thing. But if I reverse it, if I flip it horizontally, I guess you could say, then that would reverse it. So reverse the symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. And we'll see if we get one like that. So again, you can type in right here, or you can try to use the draw tool. Totally up to you. So what we want to do is we want to solve these inequalities, and then we want to show them as an inequality on a number line and in interval notation. So this is really easy. All I'm going to do is just subtract 9 from both sides. And that would be 4x is less than 16. And then when I divide by 4, now this is a positive 4, so I'm not flipping around this symbol or anything. I'm going to leave it the way it is. X is less than 4. All right, so this is the inequality. To do the number line, it's really simple. All I really want you to do is just put the one number on there, the 4. It's less than, so it's an open circle. And then my arrow is going to go to the left. And if you can't remember which way the arrow goes, when you look at that less than symbol, imagine that it is an arrow and it goes to the left. And then the last thing we want to do is the interval notation, and this is negative infinity over here on this side. So parentheses, negative infinity, 4, and it's an open circle, so that's also parentheses. Okay, so let's look at this one. 1 minus 3x is greater than or equal to 14. So I have a negative 3x, I have a positive 1. I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. Negative 3x is greater than or equal to 13. Yep. Okay, this time I'm dividing by a negative number. So I'm going to reverse this symbol. X is greater than or equal to, and we'll just leave this negative 13/3 if you want to, or you can change it to a mixed number. That's going to be negative 4 and 1/3. That kind of tells us where it is. But again, when you draw the number line for me, you don't have to put other numbers on there. You just need to put the 1 on there. So negative 13/3 can go on the number line. It is a closed circle because I have that line, the equals, so it's closed circle, and then the arrow. Oh, I didn't reverse it. Let me see if I can. Sorry, that should have changed to less than. X is less than or equal to. Okay, so closed circle, and then my arrow, I'm going to shade going this way. And interval notation, this is negative infinity over here. So I've got negative infinity and negative 13/3. Infinity and negative infinity always get parentheses. Negative 13/3 is going to get a bracket because it is included in the solution set. Okay, last little bit of our notes here. We're going to solve these inequalities, write them in interval notation and on a number line. So x minus 1 is less than negative 1. That we're going to add add positive 1 to both sides. So x is less than 0. Let's just solve them all first. Let's see. This one's going to be, I need to add a negative x over here. So that's going to be 2x greater than 8. Divide by 2. X is greater than 4. And then let's see, this one I'm going to subtract 4 here. negative 2x is greater than 28. Divide by, sorry, that should have been a 2x. Divide by negative 2. X is, and I need to switch this symbol, less than, what's that, negative 14. Okay, now let's do the number lines. All right, so this one, 0's there, open circle, and my arrow goes this way. So let's put 4 on a number line, open circle again. My arrow this time goes to the right. And they're all open circles. This one's open, and it goes to the left. Okay, so let's do interval notation. This one has negative infinity in it. That one always gets parentheses. This one has parentheses. Oh, I guess we're not going to have any brackets in this one. So let's see, this is positive infinity. So my endpoints are 4 and positive infinity, and they both get parentheses because it's open circle. This is negative infinity included. And those are both parentheses. Okay, so that's it for your notes. You will have a classwork assignment that will be similar to this. It will be on the PDF, and you will be writing on that or typing on that, however you want to do. If you have any questions, be sure you should always join in to the live lesson anyway, but especially if you have questions about this and you need some help with the worksheet, I can help you with that. So let me know. If you have questions, text me or email me.